Welcome to Fellowship 17, a podcast from Child Evangelism Fellowship for the Christian community. On this podcast, we discuss various biblical topics, passages, and truths, and how those truths have impacted the lives of people around the world. I'm your host, Jeff Nichols, Vice President of USA Ministries for CEF. Today we'll be sitting down with the CEO of D6 Family Ministries, Dr. Ron Hunter. Dr. Hunter is the founder of D6 Conference, and we're glad to have you here with us today, Ron. D6 is making a huge impact across the nation and across the world in connecting church and home for effective church discipleship. It's great to have you here today, Ron.
Thank you, friend. It's good to be here. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah, full disclosure here. Ron
we have history, don't
we? we go back a very long way. Ron and I were in college together at Welch College, and have a lot of great memories together. Our kids growing up together, and
been in church together.
So we've got a lot of history here. We could go on and on.
That's
but
right.
People don't want to hear about those things as much as hearing about child discipleship. So you start the D6 conference back in the day, and from that conference has evolved not only the conference but the curriculum that goes along with church home discipleship. Tell us why at that particular point in time you thought that was needed.
Yeah. First of all, I think it comes from when I was in ministry prior to being at D6 Family Ministry. I was a pastor, and I saw up close parents who would have their kids grow up, become teenagers, and literally drive away from church and often away from their faith. And there was a need. And so what was happening is parents were bringing their families to church going, hey, all of you guys teach my kids. Sunday school teachers, life group leaders, pastors, youth pastors, whomever, you do it all. And we realized that I think a key here is D6 is short for Deuteronomy 6, where God says to moms and dads and grandparents, you have a part to play in this. And so we began to ask, what does that part look like? Yeah. That's how it started.
Yeah. And then as you developed the conference, were you surprised, alarmed, or whatever in the reaction that you were getting from the churches and the ministries at that particular time, at the very beginning of this, the impetus of all of this?
Blown away. The Ephesians passage that God does exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think or hope. I'm a pretty big dreamer. But what God did with that first moment was it resonated with people globally, because we had people coming in from all over going, we need this. Every mom and dad who's ever experienced prodigalness, every mom and dad who's experienced kids not sure if they're going to continue in their faith walk with Christ, they need this. Pastors look and go, how do I make this better? They need this. And so it immediately resonated, and we were shocked. And now we see God working in 20 plus countries around the world. 6 of them physically present and then some online. We're not as big as CEF, but God is really doing an amazing work to do what only He could do.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned CEF and D6 because we already have a partnership together.
Yes.
Thanks to the denominational partnership that CEF has with the Free Will Baptist denomination. D6 is under the umbrella of the Free Will Baptist denomination.
Correct.
So we are already a ministry partner with D6 Family Ministries, which I absolutely love. Yeah. So we're not talking about starting something. Yes. We're talking about developing something even more. And so I love the way that all of that has come to pass and been developed. And after you started that D6 Family Ministry movement, which now it really is a movement, Ron. How does that make you feel?
Wow.
To kind of look around at the landscape and say, we help start something that's not just contained to our particular publishing house.
That's right.
It is spread across the church landscape.
I think first and foremost, I'm excited that people view it as a movement, not as a program. We never intended it to be a program, which means you can practice the principles of Deuteronomy 6, the principles of Ephesians 6, and the numerous other passages scripturally, regardless of how you put it in the methods, what it looks like. You can do this, and you can do this geographically all over the world. So it is exciting to see what God has done with this movement for sure.
It really is amazing. I mean, looking at it from the outside in, pretty kind of, sort of, with you, Ron, I have been absolutely blown away and incredibly proud of what you and D6 have done.
It's a team effort, remember that. And again, what we put in work, There's no way we could see this spread without God allowing it to resonate the way it has with so many people on a global level.
Okay, let's talk about where
Yeah.
things are today.
Sure.
Because now it's been there for a little while. It's been sitting there in the landscape, as
Yes.
we say.
Yes.
Now it's been growing, evolving, and different trends and falling under the different trends that are going on in the church in general today. Where do you see church home discipleship today as we sit here?
Right. It's funny you mentioned the word trend, because there was a handful of naysayers about 10 years ago said, oh yeah, this family and church thing, it's a trend, it's a fad. They actually went far enough to go, yeah, 2 or 3 years it'll be over. Well, there are some churches out there who are always looking for the next big thing. And I would just say to all the listeners, find principles that you can absolutely buckle down and follow. And we believe we're sharing principles of church and home, equipping all generations, regardless of how you apply it, again, as we said earlier. But do that so that a trend is not a trend, but it is a pathway. It's a journey that you can pass along generation to generation. You know, the reason why we want to reach children, shared mission here, when we establish those habits early, it makes a difference when they become adults, because they will parent the way they parented, the way they were parented. And so as a result, we want to break those bad habits, break those bad traditions, and allow what starts at church to go home. And so that's what we want to see out of this most of all, is that area to go, okay, it's not a trend. Now, in North America, let's talk there for a minute, compare it to what's happening on a global scale. North American pastors tend to look for that next program. They want to jump on, and their people are like, oh, well, what's going to be next? Whatever they come back from, whatever conference, whatever book they read. But if we could buckle down and stay generational discipleship, which emphasizes evangelism and follow through and stickability, if we can do that, we will literally begin to change the worldview and the culture of the people who are coming up, which changes each nation, specifically the ones we're living in right now for our listeners, for the good, for generations to come.
CEF and D6 Family Ministries is trying to make kingdom impact.
Right.
We don't really care about the label on it.
Right.
We really want to make kingdom impact. And we are both coming alongside churches to resource them and help them.
That's right.
CF has a very specific goal of helping them evangelize, disciple children, and get them established in those homes. And that's why I love this partnership between us so much, because D6 Family Ministries is offering the resources to help them get those kids established in the home.
That's right.
And in the church, and to figure out what discipleship in the real world really looks like.
Yes.
Not some pie in the sky discipleship, but discipleship in the real world looks like. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think CEF and D6 Family Ministry are in parallel but complementary lanes, fulfilling very similar missions. And we can work so well together.
Yeah. Now, I'll ask you about trends.
Yes.
Looking ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, as you look ahead to the trends that are there, we're under a big discipleship trend right now. I mean, and it's affecting a lot of church trends and programs. There's a huge emphasis on discipleship right now, and I'm sure your ministries have been affected by that. If you can pull out your crystal ball, I'm not asking you to be a fortune teller or anything, but just kind of pulling out your crystal ball and saying, this is where things seem to be heading in the near future in church ministry, and what church home discipleship looks like in the near future. What would you say might be one or two of those things?
Yeah, I think with the millennial parents and Gen Z parents coming along, there's this move back to a true authenticity, something where it's experiential. They don't care as much about materialistic items, but they want their kids to experience certain areas. And as a result, if the church or parachurch organizations can equip moms, dads, grandparents, mentors, they don't even need to be biological relationships, but equip them to engage in a role that mentors them in discipleship areas, it changes those experiences. Showing
good.
up, not everything needs to be a lesson. Not everything needs to be a sermon. We got to show up at their ball games. We got to show up at their events. We got to show up and just support. We got to have conversations in the hallway. And those are experiences that they don't easily forget. They're like, hey, Mr. Smith cares deeply about me, those are the items that change, and it doesn't have to be super theological.
Right,
It
right.
just needs to be relational with the right foundation. So if I could look into the future, I think the generation coming up is going to do it better than you and I did, to be very honest with
Yeah.
our listeners, because our parents would say, obey me because I said so, not because, and they never gave us the groundwork that we could build an apologetic reasoning on. Now these younger generations, they want substance. And I believe what we're offering, CEF and D6 Family Ministry, is here's what Christ is meant to be, and here's how he will transform your life so that we can transform those who come after you.
I love that. I love that. Perfect. Authenticity.
Yes.
That's what they're going to be after
Yeah,
in the
they
future,
are.
which you don't have to print that off on the printer, right?
No, that's right.
You didn't-
That's right.
You can't order it. You can't
Yeah.
fake it
No,
either. So
no.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to point people to your website, but if you would say, this is all you got church leaders and volunteers out there like this is all relatively new to me.
Right.
And it seems a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where would be the best place to start? Do you have a resource? You have a book? You have something that you could say, you should start here. Where would that be?
Right. Well, there's different personalities listening. Some people will dive into a book. Other people want to attend an event. Some people want to listen to a podcast. I would say come to d6familyministry.com and you choose which avenue you want to be introduced, because we have each one of those. And it doesn't matter your age, season of life, but there is something there that will help you. And unlike other resources where you go and search and you find 150 answers, we're going to cull it or curate it down to the best 8 to 15, so that you'll find 8 to 15 books on that topic, not 150. We've already created the very best resources in the area of generational discipleship. So I would say d6family.com and pick one of those above.
I love it, Ron. I really do. That's a great first step for
Yeah.
people that are just getting into this for the
Yes.
very first time. I love it for our CF family that we're not having to go create something on our own. It is already there
Correct.
by a ministry partner, D6
Yes.
Family Ministry, and I love that. So thank you, Ron.
Thank you for your partnership. I love walking along this road together.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait to see what God is going to do in
That's right.
in the near future.
That's
Thanks for
right.
joining us today. If you would like to learn more about D6 Family Ministries, you can visit their website at d6family.com. To learn more about who CEF is and what we believe, you can visit cefonline.com/about. This will also be linked in the show notes. Be sure to check out Unite Radio, where we unite kids with the gospel through adventures and foundational biblical truths. Give us a like, subscribe to keep up to date on both this podcast and our kids program. Thanks for listening today.